Everyone. Hi, Christine. You're on mute.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you? Hi, Judy. Kathy.
They just ran. Oh,
Give it a few minutes here. People to jump on.
Harley's leaving.
What's that?
My dog, she's going nuts.
Oh, got it. All right, give it another few minutes. We got Mark. Chief is on as well. That's good. Welcome. Folks. You guys saw the note. Tom's not going to be on today. He's kind of planning board discussion, so I'll let him. I'll ask Kathy, do you mind doing the minutes? I can get you the summary afterwards as well.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to do a better job this time.
You're fine. Hi, Rhea. Good. Do we have anything? The only one we're missing is Amy Lehan, I think. So maybe let's give it one more minute. Hey, Dave.
Evening, fellas, gals. Nice to see y'all.
Good to see you too.
Beautiful night to be looking west.
I bet. Finally, you get some sunshine.
Yeah.
Before the snow comes in.
Yeah.
It's New England for
sure
you.
my is my audio on?
It is?
Okay, good.
You're good. You're good. All right. Shall we commence and get going? I guess probably best to do that. All right, well, we'll get going. So I'll share my screen really quick if I can, and then we can kind of kick off from there. We only have a few of us on today anyway, so I think that works out. So a couple of quick things just from we did have a discussion with the select board yesterday. I was on that meeting. I also want to comment on, I have it in the agenda, kind of recap the public meeting here. That's kind of like our first. I just love to get everybody's kind of thoughts and, hear opinions from that meeting. But, talked to the select board yesterday, told them that we have our meeting today. They thought that the meeting went really well. They were happy with, the cordiality, and everybody was, in good spirit. People came prepared. They shared, concerns all across the board, which I thought was really good. A lot of really good, discussions, ideas, a lot of things we've heard in the past, but it was great to kind of have that open forum for everybody to come all at once. It was a pretty highly attended meeting too. It had at least, I think it actually had, like 130, 140 people actually came to the meeting. So between in person and online, so well attended, which was good. So I think that was a success to hear, the overall body of the community, I think was really good. So talked to the select board about, our meeting today, told them what we had on our discussions. I had some bylaw discussion stuff I wanted to convey and discuss with everybody here tonight. Had some signage stuff that I think is kind of in concert with the bylaw discussion. And then the other thing that we have on the agenda for tonight, just timing for a select board recommendation. They weren't pushing hard for a completion date, but they if we were to get some sort of change, they would need it pretty much by the end of April is kind of the time frame they would need in order if it was something to go on a warrant for the town meeting. But they also said that we could also do something down the road. Could be a special meeting, could be whatever. They didn't want to overly rush anything either from our perspective. So my follow-up is after our meeting here tonight is just kind of give the select board an update of what we discussed and kind of where we are as a committee, post today. So that's kind of the plan. Okay. Pretty good. All right. Tracy, is there something you want to ask? I typically going to hold off on too many public comments
I don't
just
see,
because we just had a giant meeting a week
Yeah.
ago.
see no public comment on the agenda and I'm just here to make a
Yeah,
public.
sure.
So I think it would be advisable for everybody on this committee to take the Mass State voting law, voting class, because so many of your discussions are spinning around about the rules. And it seems like it would just make sense if you guys are going to be making any recommendations, you should actually understand what the laws are. That's it.
I have my voting law. I have my certificate already.
Well, then I'm confused as to why you didn't understand, you don't understand some of the voting law.
I understand quite a bit of the voting law actually, but I'm not going to get into that tonight. I'm going to move our committee forward with what we have on our topics. So thank you. Maria, go ahead.
Yeah, Matt, thanks. What I recall from the select board meeting last night is that they did ask us to revisit the bylaws. That was kind of a consensus from them, and I just want to make sure that we're mentioning that.
That's the bylaw discussion and signage. It's on the agenda.
Okay,
Absolutely.
all right.
I'm with you. It's good. Anyone else? Any other comments? Good. All right. Minutes review. Did everybody get a chance to review the 326 minutes? I saw Tom sent those over. I sent him over the PowerPoint deck that we had from 326, so he can add those to them. But I'd like to get a review of what you guys think of the minutes. Anybody have any comments, questions, changes?
They look good to me.
Everybody?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second,
All right. Second. All right. Brazel? Yay, nay? Christine?
Sorry. I agree. Sorry about that.
Yes on the minutes?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Green?
Yes?
Lehan?
Aye.
Remmel?
Aye.
Rivers?
Aye.
Salvador?
aye.
Seifert not here. Rhea, one caller?
Aye.
And Baroque aye. Okay, that's done. Okay. Judy, did you have a
I
question?
did. I wanted to, I guess I have comment about well, after the select board meeting. I saw, I heard a lot of people that said that they really wanted to keep everything the way it was, and they think that the lake works perfectly the way it is. And that if they can't get in the water, if they don't feel safe, they are happy to wait until the boats are thinned out some. And And then a lot of people also said they don't feel safe. And it's just strange how this is supposed to be a boating safety committee. And yet, it just seems like it's, well, should we make any changes or not? Where I think we are supposed to be thinking about what safety changes can we make that will work for our lake being as small as it is, because the law is still going to be the law, whether you decide you want to put it on our bylaws or our safety cards. It seems like there's a lot of resistance to that. I don't know why, because it is the law, whether it's on there or not. So that's what I'd like to put the state laws that are necessary on the everything, all of our information, because that's what we're supposed to be for, and then figure out how to make it work on our lake.
Yep,
Okay, that's all.
thank you. It's good. I put it this way, I think you might like my sign. So I'll show that in a few minutes. So let's move on to the first agenda item. So just public meeting recap. You kind of kicked that off, Judy, already with some of your comments. Anybody else want to chime in on anything else from the public meeting perspective? Anybody like it? Didn't like it?
I thought it went well.
Okay.
I was glad that it was civil, and
Yeah.
because there's a lot of different opinions out there.
I agree.
So, and they learned that they could use that facility to do future large meetings because the OWL system worked better at the school than it does at the town hall. So there was another benefit from that. But no, I thought the meeting went well. And as long as we listen to what was said, so I think that's important.
Great. Good. Anyone else?
It also made the front page of the Hampshire Gazette. I don't know if anybody was able to see that. Was everybody able to see that?
I saw it.
No.
Yeah, it was, I guess it was last Thursday, so it had been the day after, and it's right on the front page. I would say I was happy they saw, they posted the proposal that, I'd like to propose again to this group. We're kind of looking at how long we're going and the summer season's coming. So I just would like to propose that we do kind of keep the bylaws the same, collect data this summer, and work with the trial period of designated time sharing to see how that works, so that we could move into the fall season with a little bit more info. Because right now we're kind of being more reactive than responsive. We had an incident, and that doesn't change overnight. We're also looking at a culture. There's a culture on the lake and people who come to visit and all that. So yeah, I'd like to see that move forward. And I have a couple ideas for that too on the time sharing. I really feel like I love the world-class skiers that are on the lake. Amy, I really want you to be able to ski. I mean, it's beautiful to see skiers. I wish I could still do that. But, we also have some other folks to kind of address too. And one of the things I mentioned last night, and I know Matt heard it, but I was privy to find out that one of the things that wasn't mentioned is that the Morris Hill camp, they actually travel 40 minutes one way to Tully because they do not feel that they could bring the kids out on the lake. And that was a big red flag to me. That's just one way.
That was a big question I had as well, so I reached out to them today because I wanted to hear from them what they have to say. So I talked to Victoria, the owner, and Jess, the director, and they actually go to Tully Lake for a whole host of different reasons, Rhea. They go to Tully Lake because they run canoe camps. They run canoe camps there because it's more interesting than Lake Wyola and going around the coves and the small lake that we are. They have streams, waterfalls. They go explore. They do a whole host of other things. They also went to Tully Lake last year a lot because the public beach was shut down for 30 days. I confirmed that with the DCR. They couldn't use the lake to swim with their campers. They mostly use the lake during the week, and they agree that the lake is definitely quieter during the week. But they use the boat ramp, they do builds, they do all sorts of things on the lake. So it wasn't because of motorboats. Do they prefer quieter times when they have new campers and everything else? Absolutely. They do like that. Like they'll take out a group of young campers in canoes and go park out by the Eagle's Nest and go look at that. But they didn't go to Tully Lake because of motorboats in specific. They go there for a whole host of different reasons. So I confirmed that with
Well,
them.
I'm sure. I go there too. Sometimes I'll be
Yeah.
on the Connecticut River in the morning and on Lake Wyola in the evening.
Yeah.
So I totally get
but-
diversified use.
Yeah, and then they go to other lakes and streams. They run a lot of canoe camps. But the real driver of why they were at Tully last year was the 30 days that the lake was shut down from the public beach perspective because of the geese that hang out on the public beach.
On
I
the
mean,
state park
that's
you're talking about.
yeah, the state park. Yeah, that's my interpretation of why that water tests different than the other beaches is because there's like 30 geese sitting on there every single morning. That's not great for sanitation purposes.
No,
But, anyway.
that's
That's
not
interesting,
true,
but-
actually. They have much higher standards of testing. They have a
Do they?
longer delay period. We've discussed this at LWAC on multiple occasions, but
Uh-huh.
not to divert, but it's not because of the geese. It's a whole different,
Oh, okay.
whole different topic.
Okay. All right. Let's not go down that road. I'm not a aficionado on toxicology, so I will definitely bar away from that one. Chief, you have your hand up? Something? You wanna speak?
Yes, thank you. I hope no one minds if I don't put my camera on. If you insist, I will. It's just been a long day. And I'm at home. So
worries.
I just wanted to say thank you, Matt, for stating that because I had also reached out. I missed a phone call today, but I did get part of a message that stated the same thing. I was hoping that I just wanted to say, would you please send an email off with those findings to the select board? Because when that comment was made last night, I think that that was concerning and they leaned to me to find out why I didn't know that they felt unsafe. And so it was my belief that there was a much different reason. And I thank you for finding that out. But I think we need to let the select board know that was, miscommunication.
Okay.
And I'm gonna-
I mean,
I'll-
yeah,
I'll-
I think it was just more of a
I'll
clarification.
follow
I
up
think.
too. Because it was told directly to me, to the woman who spoke at the listening meeting. So there must be something going on there. She was the one who told me directly, Jessica or Jess.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
if we already followed up with the director of the academy and they would be the one that knows why they're going somewhere, I don't think we have to keep belaboring the point and harassing them.
I don't feel it's harassing at all to have a discussion.
They were very vocal about they want to be good stewards to the lake. They want to be great neighbors. They know the lake is busier on the weekends, so they tend to go do other things. They choose to go to the lake when it's appropriate based on the camps that they have and the level of experience that they have as well too. So there's a lot of did they say, hey, we hate motorboats? They didn't say that when I talked to them today.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, maybe harassment was a strong word, but I do know these people. I work very well with them, and I've worked closely with them for about 6 years. And I just think if we've already asked the question, it's already been answered. And just because maybe, we want to get a different answer or we spoke to somebody different, I think that this is, I think that's just not, it's not healthy to continue going back, and we've gotten our answer from the people that run the school.
Okay. Anything else on that? I don't think we want to keep going down that road. Okay. Anything else on the public meeting? Anyone? Good. Okay, so I'll transition to kind of like some of the bylaw discussion, and I think taking off from a lot of what I heard at the public meeting, a bunch of other things that we've been discussing. There's a few things with bylaws that I think are worthy of conversation. So if you guys would just bear with me for maybe like 10 minutes, I'd like to kind of go through some ideas I have, some thoughts, and just kind of like, rationale why I'm thinking about different things. And then we can open up for a comment and discussion, but I don't want to like stop at every single point and then have a discussion about it. Is that fair with everybody? All right, cool. So we'll go with that. Let me share my screen again. Hang tight. Where's the screen share? All right. Can everyone see the screen? You guys good? Anyone? Anyone?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Want to make sure. All right, so one of the things that I did is I kind of took a look at kind of the bylaws that we accepted, kind of our current bylaws. And I came up with a couple of different suggestions, and I wanted to run them by the taking in a lot of information from a lot of different people. I think it's important to kind of like think through some stuff and kind of just address a couple of things. I don't think we need radical change, but I think
Matt,
kind of
one
to your point,
second.
even
Who's taking minutes?
Kathy.
Kathy?
Why do you ask?
Okay.
Because I just didn't, we didn't ask before the meeting, so I just,
Oh, yeah, he did.
oh, okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. Thank you. Sorry, Matt.
No worries. So, one of the things I did is I kind of took a stab at, okay, kind of like with Rio's point, I mean, what do we have to do this year to get something in place? How do we get some signage? How do we get some education and get something going, right? I mean, we're talking, it's April 9th and, another week, another month from now, people are gonna be boating and people are gonna be visiting the lake. So one thing that I thought was a helpful thing to me, it's not necessarily a bylaw, but it's kind of like an overarching statement. I've seen this in other bylaws. Again, I've reviewed so many different bylaws, but so just a generic statement, as within our bylaw page or our docket, whatever it may be, reckless or unsafe boating is prohibited, including speeding near shorelines, swimmers or docks, boating under the influence, and failing to maintain a proper lookout. I kind of took that, kind of blended about 3 or 4 different ones into one. But just kind of like an upfront for anybody who visits the lake or everybody who's on a lake in general is make sure that they know kind of, we're taking notice and we're making sure that we're going to keep a safe lake. It could be just a general discussion like that, which I think is good. So that was one thing I had. The first bylaw we have is, the all motorboats must comply with Massachusetts boating laws, so on and so forth. I changed it to all motorboats and paddle vessels must comply. I think it's just good to reiterate the fact that in the Massachusetts boating laws, it references paddle vessels, not just motorboats. So I thought, just adding that in there would be, again, just everybody needs to be aware of what the laws are, and they should all do their own research and recon to understand it. And I'll get to some more in a minute. Speed limit, we have ours is at 30 miles per hour. This is where I kind of try to weave in, some kind of like use time. I mean, I'm not a believer in the set times for the lake, so I'm just voicing my opinion here. But, if we did speed limit daytime is 30 miles per hour, and then 6 miles per hour from sunset to 8 a.m., at least that starts to give some, degree of, time that people know there's an opportunity on the lake to, hey, if you want to go for a peaceful paddle before 8 o'clock, you can get up and you can go do it. It's no different than we get up at, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to walk our dog up Lock Ponds Road because we don't want 50 cars go zipping by us. It's kind of the same type of thing, but it starts to set a little bit of a guideline of, hey, it's almost been like a little bit of an unwritten rule at the lake anyway. Why not just make that a little bit more formal and, give people, we heard from a few people in the audience. One individual was a swimmer. He's like, hey, if you could make it till 8, that would be great. I'd love 9, but 8 would be awesome too. I thought, that was something that I think we kind of shows we're thinking about stuff and we want people to be able to do different things. I think a lot of the majority of people say that they do all sports all the time. I don't want to be subjected to a specific time to do a certain sport. I don't think we should be telling swimmers they can go at one time and motorboats at another and paddlers at a different time. I mean, I think it just gets really confusing, be really hard to enforce as a community if there's different times for different things. That's my opinion. Again, we'll open up for discussion here shortly. I changed it to 6 miles per hour as well because 6 miles per hour is designated as headway speed by the Massachusetts boat law. So it's probably more congruent that we stick with what the law says for headway speed. So there's that piece of it. So that was one thing on kind of like the timing. I think the speed limit's pretty close. I mean, yeah, we have some world-class skiers and they drift up to 31, 32 maybe, but I'd say the majority of the people out there are 30 miles per hour is a pretty good number. I don't see us in our youth when we used to ski at, you know, a higher speed when I was on different properties. But anyway, 150 feet from shore. Again, this is a state law already, but I'm not opposed to putting it in the bylaws just to make it loud and proud. You know, speed limit 6 miles per hour within 150 feet of shore. So I kind of did these a little bit different. So speed limit, distance, direction, motorboards must travel in a counterclockwise direction around the lake. I think that one's still that one's really congruent with many lakes and across many states, by the way, too. Counterclockwise is the direction they recommend. So those are those couple ones there. My next one here, let me go down. So in that same vein, water skiing, we had sunset to sunrise. I had water skiing and other towable activities allowed between 8 a.m. to sunset. That's kind of the way I positioned that one. The next one, no watercraft allowed. Motorized. This is the one that Tom had made mention to about how it kind of contradicts the DCR. So I just said beaches, only non-motorized watercraft can dock or launch from a town or Lake Wyola Association beaches. And these areas shall not extend more than 75 feet from shore. And then jumping onto that 75 feet from shore perspective, one of the things I again, for discussion, this is not, you know, it's my opinion, but I think, you know, swimming, I think swimmers should be accompanied by a boat if they're beyond 75 feet from shore. And one, we already have that in the kind of the one up above, that kind of swim areas are 75 feet. And the other reason I think 75 feet, one, we want to be safer as a community. And if I think about 75 feet, that's pretty far out from, I'm just thinking about my property in specific. The average depth at about 60 feet, 70 feet out around the lake is around 8 to 10 feet anyway, for the majority. I know there'll be certain areas that don't, maybe that's not the case. But when you think about 150 feet, that's like the average dock on the lake is probably 40-ish feet. So you're talking more than 3 dock lengths out into the boat lane without some sort of, you know, identification or somebody, you know, kind of keeping an eye on you from a safety perspective. To me, I think that would make more sense, because if you say someone's 75 feet, then you have to be 150 feet from them. Now you're talking about, you're almost in the middle of the lake. And I think that becomes a little bit difficult to navigate potentially. So that's, again, my opinion. We can open that up for conversation, discussion. So I got a typo here in this one, but that's all right. And then what I had next, that just to kind of show, this is kind of how I think I had a little more time to spend on kind of building out a picture of what this could all look like. We could have a sign that has kind of, I picture like a 5 foot by 3 foot sign, something like that. Lists all of our bylaws right up front. I think that's so people can see them very clearly. They're laid out. And then I think, you know, getting that all on a picture too, because some people might not want to read all the words, but they may gravitate over to the picture. And a couple of key things I wanted to point out here is, again, putting the speed limits clockwise, no wakes, you know, the distance from swimmers, 150 feet, you know, very prominently put out there. And I kind of shaded it in differently too, so people can see along all the shorelines, it's a no wake zone. You know, it's 6 miles per hour. I think that's something we want to show. I think we can point out some of the buoys that are on the lake. We have the Lake Wyola Association beaches, and we can have them put those buoys out at 150 feet and even put a sign on them that they're 150 feet for, you know, visual demarcations on the lake. And then I also thought we had up the idea of maybe putting 2 buoys in the cove, so it's bottom right area. Could we put a boat at, if we did decide 75 feet was good for swimmers or not? Don't know. We could put a distance marker that people can see how far is 75 feet, how far is 150 feet. For the people that are visiting the lake from out of town, it'll give them some nice visuals potentially to see where we actually are on the lake. And then the other thing I thought we could add is some kind of these rules and etiquette. I think that's worthy of putting on there. I had in here kind of thinking futuristically, all motorboaters must have a Massachusetts boating license after April 1st, 2028, assuming the sign's going to, stand up for, 5 years plus. It could be something that could be out there, just to tell people even in advance of the law. Might even encourage them to go get their license sooner. Who knows? Motorboaters are to maintain 150 feet from a swimmer per Mass boating law. Kind of have that in several spots. I like that. I think that's important for people to know. All paddle sport vessels must have USG approved PFDs for all users. That's something that I think I see a lot of people out on kayaks and, other vessels with no flotation. So I think that's important. All vessels, paddle and motorboats must have visible navigation lights, that on their vessel after sunset. That's an important thing that I think gets overlooked and people don't even realize that's part of the law. So I think that's important. Like we could have some some etiquette or just ideas for people too. Swimmers and paddlers are encouraged to travel clockwise around the lake so they have a clear view of oncoming motorboaters. Just, if you're in a kayak and you're going around the lake, if you could go clockwise or counterclockwise. Maybe counterclockwise or clockwise is a safer way to go. I mean, open for discussion there. And then the last thing I had is, swimmers are encouraged to have visible buoys. I think that's if you're a competitive swimmer and you're swimming around the lake and you're gonna be making laps as you're, practicing for your triathlon or whatever it may be, have a buoy is a good thing. I mean, if we want to talk about safety, talk about boating safety, how we make everybody safer, I think is a real prominent thing that we should think about and encourage people to do some of these things as well. So that's my 10 minutes, and I'd love to open it up for a conversation now, but I thought it was an idea of how to take in some of what I heard, trying to understand what a lot of the majority say, but then also trying to think about, being cognizant of everybody. I think there's a couple small tweaks here that kind of get to, a point where we should get something done this year. And I'd love to see signage and start the education and get that, introduced, sooner than later to the broader community. So I'll stop there. This as the summary, so we can just use this as our picture and we can talk about it. Chief, go ahead.
I know I definitely wasn't the first one with my hand up. I can wait if you want.
Oh, who was for? I'm sorry, I
Judy,
didn't see.
Judy, I know I
Oh,
saw
go ahead, Judy.
Judy. Yeah.
That's okay.
Oh, Judy, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was not paying attention. I just looked
No,
over.
no, that's
so.
okay.
You want to go ahead, go, Judy?
No,
Sounds
go
like you were
ahead,
first.
Chief. Well,
You have the
Okay.
floor.
If you want me to go, I'll go. I just wanted
Yeah.
to say, I very much, Ria made the statement last night at the select board meeting and then again today, we don't want to jump into anything too quickly and we want to get statistics. And I can very much appreciate that. I am somebody who deals in statistics and I feel that we can get a good, a really good sort of thought process around all of this. I just wanted to say that I can very much appreciate that. Also, thank you so much, Matt. This all is absolutely incredible. And then I was wondering, is the plan, and I might have missed it, I apologize, is the plan to not only put it on a sign, but put it on the website and
All of
maybe
it.
get some cards printed out that
Yep.
like we could hand out, start of the season, officers, if they see somebody, they say, hey, have
Yep.
you seen this? That sort of thing. That's just what I was.
Yeah, I can envision cards. I think a broad mailer to the lake community as a whole. I can think about having a little box at the boat ramp, kind of like they do with, real estate flyers that somebody fills, once every couple weeks, alongside the sign so they can take a copy of this with them. I think, cards to hand out is a great idea. Website, somebody rents a kayak from the library. They get a card so everybody knows kind of what's going on. I mean, again, we can kind of, once we have some collateral like this that I'm showing, we can easily use that as disbursement, get it, put one of these signs up at the Lake Wyola Association, clubhouse, put it at, potentially put it at the public beach. I mean, there's, because you get a lot of people who swim from the public beach out into the lake. So there
Great.
could be a lot of ways. to
Unlimited
utilize-
ideas. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a
Perfect.
lot of ways to use it. Again, it just took a little time to put it in a format that I think kind of tells the story several different ways. So there's that to be said there. So, Judy, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I really don't like the idea of making swimmers stay at 75 feet. It sounds like you're trying to restrict the swimmers, and the boaters are the same. You know, I swim at 70 feet now, and I'm in the weeds. It's 4 foot deep where I am and where I swim at 70 feet. The state law is 150 feet, and I think it should be marked out to 150 feet so that swimmers have enough room to be able to swim. And also because you can put 150 foot that boats are supposed to stay from swimmers all you want. And it has been that way, but believe me, it does not happen.
Mhm. I also don't think we've been educating people either, is my opinion.
Well,
Not a lot of
you
people even
it
know what
doesn't
they're
happen.
supposed to
No,
do.
I totally resist that.
Well, we agree to disagree on that. That's okay.
Yeah, we
And I'm
do.
not saying you can't swim beyond 75 feet. I'm
No,
saying that
I'm gonna swim at
beyond-
150 feet, and I'm gonna put the buoys out at 150 feet as the state law suggests.
the state law says you can't have a wake within 150 feet of shore.
No,
what-
it says that swimmers can swim 150 feet from shore, and boaters have to stay 150 feet from swimmers.
And that's why towns are able to make bylaws so that we can make our own
So you can
achieving
make it
laws.
more safe for swimmers, not boaters don't need to be safe.
I think all boaters should be safe, quite frankly.
Well, they should be, but guess what? They're not.
That you're making a general comment, so you're saying I'm not safe when I'm out there boating.
You know what I mean. Are you saying the same thing about swimmers?
I'm saying that if a swimmer is more than 75 feet from shore, I'd love for them to have a boat with them so that they're easily seen and depicted, so the motorboats have a clear view of them, is my
That's
opinion.
not what the law is.
Hence the bylaws.
Well, the bylaws should make sure that they also take care of swimmers or swimming in weeds at 70 feet.
I'm,
You may have 10 feet. We don't.
All right. We've shared our piece, I think. Mr. Green, you are up next.
I just have a procedural question, Matt. The way I read this is that it appears that these are changes to the bylaws. And
Correct.
we have a committee vote that we're not going to do that. Do we
Right.
need to change that vote in order to adapt these and move forward?
So we would have to make a motion if we wanted to adapt new bylaws. Yes, that would be the procedural piece of it, correct? I wanted to present some ideas, have discussion, and if people felt they wanted to either potentially change them and or, potentially motion to,
Would the
accept
procedural be
them, then-
vote to annul the previous vote, though? It wouldn't be,
Would
it
it-
would be to annul the previous vote if we were going to do that, correct? Or am I wrong?
that I don't know. I think it would just be a motion to accept these new bylaws and then precede the previous motion is my way I understand it, but I don't know.
We should get clarification on that because
I can help.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay. So usually what happens in these situations, and I've been on a few different committees in regards to coming up with rules and things like that. So what usually happens is if somebody else presents another bylaw, or I'm sorry, another piece that they want to present over top of what you've already voted for, first you have to say, do we have a motion to, and then accept this to be reviewed and potentially voted on. If this particular new set of bylaw, part of the bylaw, rules of the bylaw, Again, it's been a really long day and I also went to the dentist today, so. If that then gets voted unanimously, the other one is then out. You don't have to annul one in order to vote on another one. It's then just that the new one is voted in. You could certainly say, do we want to start all over, take that other vote out, but
What if
you know,
it's not voted on unanimously? The
I
first
thought it was
vote
just a
wasn't
majority
unanimous.
as far as I understood.
but
I think
I'm
it's-
sorry, majority. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you, Chief. Thank you.
I spoke wrong with that. I meant majority, correct. So, but it first would have to be voted that this move forward for a vote,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
And really, it's not a whole new, it's really just voting on adding pieces and changing certain things. So you could go line by line if you really wanted to.
Sure. Okay. And if you're in a motion like that, that's when there's time for discussion, right? And there can be discussion to amend things as well, too, from what I understand.
Exactly.
Yep. Rhea, go ahead.
Okay. My understanding is that the state laws trump town laws. Is that true for the bylaw on the lake?
No, I
So
don't
we
believe
could
it.
set up our, I mean,
I
we could
don't-
say, oh, people could go, 150 miles an hour out there or whatever. And if the state law says, no, you can't go there, we can't make that bylaw.
I forgot, on a great pond, you can go more stringent than the state law. From what I understand, when I look at great ponds, the town of the pond has the ability to make more strict laws than state laws.
Strict laws for
Which is what we have,
voters.
like, just like 30 miles per hour is, could be stricter than, even though the mass law is vague, they only have speed limits on the Connecticut River. But that's the way I interpret that.
Yeah, and I think Judith is making a good point in that
The point
you're
is,
talking
it's
about
the
for-
voting. They're
for swimmers.
voting laws. You can make them more strict for voters. You can't make them less strict for voters.
You mean for swimmers?
Well, I meant for voters, you can't take people's swimming areas away that are legal by the state, but you can make the voters stay farther away.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so I just think that's an area that we need to kind of clarify. And so what I'm not seeing is time sharing, which I really feel is the most equitable piece here. And what I'm hearing is that that's just something that you don't want to do because it's infringing upon your rights. And Matt, you said that directly in the beginning of the meeting
did.
here. And
My opinion only.
yeah, I get that. And you're the chair. And so what we're hearing, though, is that people see that different ways. And if you're living on the lake, it feels like that's the right thing to do. And we should be able to use it anytime we want. But we are charged with looking at the good of all. And when we're looking at an equitable process here, good of all is not for our own individual rights here in this case. And really, I'm on the committee for the good of all of Shutesbury and all our visitors here, not just because, I love to go boating. I do, but it's not just that. So I'm wondering, what is that change there? Because you also mentioned that you just don't see that working, that there's just no way to do that. And at the same time, we have a whole presentation here on, a very nice, I agree with Kristen that it was a nice presentation that you had there. But other great ponds do this all over of the same size. And they've been doing it for a long time. So I don't see, that's actually data that it actually does work, that there could be time sharing.
Do you want me to
And,
respond or you want to let other people chime in
or-
here first? I don't want to take up
Well,
all the time.
I just see it as people are talking about
Yeah,
an individual
I
right
mean-
versus a community right for the good of all. And I do
For-
see that as a difference.
So if you want me to share my opinion, I will. So living on the lake, I sit on my deck all weekend long And there's ample times on Saturdays and Sundays, midday, mid-afternoon, early evening, early morning, there is not a boat on the water. So to me, to actually start putting specific times when there's always an opportunity for people to do their recreation of choice, I think is super, prohibitive for the people that want to be able to do all activities at all given times. We do have out of town boaters who roll into town. What are they going to do if they roll into town and at 2 o'clock they just drove 2.5 hours with their kids and now they can't use the lake in their motorboat because there's a restricted time in there? Are we going to have the police station down there during these times to patrol the boat ramp and patrol the waters of the lake every time we put in a prohibitive time? I think that it just becomes very confusing, difficult to manage. And from what I've heard of lakes that do have this, the other lakes, I've talked to a few people who've been on lakes that have specific times, is that when the times come for the motorboaters, it's like chaos because everybody's sitting on shore waiting to go out, and you create a bigger safety problem than you already had. Because now what would have been a natural progression of people going out when they see there's a few boats out, now everybody's racing out there at 3 o'clock to go out there and get their last licks in before they have to leave or whatever it is that they have to do with their families that are on shore or they came in from out of town. It creates chaos on the lake at the same time. We're talking about boating safety. I'd like for it to be safe, not create even a bigger problem that we don't need. When I see that the lake already has ample time, you look at the times during the week. I mean, there is nobody on this lake. I mean, I sit there and I work from home on a regular basis. There's barely any boats on this lake during the week. You get a few in the afternoons and when people get out of work, but there's so much time to be able to go out there and do recreation. And that's where I was thinking, hey, I like to walk my dog in the morning when it's not busy. Let's create a little bit of a window of time where if people want to get up early and go enjoy something, go for it. I don't mind. But that's my opinion. Those are my that's my opinion.
Is.
Sitting there.
If I may just address that, that's why I really recommend having this trial period. It's obviously working in many lakes, not just great ponds. And we might actually see I'll call it a traffic pattern that would differ if people knew that they could come to the lake at a certain time and be able to recreate safely with designated times. That might be part of the reasons why you're seeing the pattern that you're currently seeing. And part of that is getting that communication out. Yeah, it's always going to be a sticking point. It's not going to work perfect in the beginning, but changes happen. We change the speed limit in towns, well, we don't, but the state does.
My counter argument would be then, so is there only designated times for paddlers? So can paddlers not be on the lake when we're on motorboating or water skiing? That's what you're saying? And swimmers can only be out at a certain time?
I'm actually saying that boats don't stay off the lake, but they go at headway speed during those designated times, which is really different than going around the circle, pulling a wakeboard or whatever. So actually, I'm not saying that boats can't be on the lake. In fact, I would recommend that we have one night, possibly a Wednesday night, where we have a regatta or a rally. You're talking about education. So we start instituting that. Everybody can meet in the center of the lake. And that would be a beautiful time to have education and community building. From what I understand, the Lake Association safety group, I believe hasn't met for like pre-COVID. So that we are rebuilding a scene, and it isn't just for the people who live on the lake. So we won't know unless we try. So you could say it's not going to work, but if we haven't tried it, we haven't tried it.
Yep. Let's let other people chime in. Mark or Christine, you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
Matt, I first want to say what you presented is very impressive. I'm sure it took a lot of time, and I think it looks really, really, really good. Thank you. And I like the fact that when they're talking about the innovation that Ria's been talking about and Judy about timing and things like that, I think it's a good compromise to have that early morning where the swimmers can have their time. Judy, I don't need you laughing at me, okay?
Yeah.
Appropriate.
Yeah, right.
It's very inappropriate, ma'am.
Sure, whatever you say.
I am saying it, and I think you're being very rude. Why don't you mute yourself? Thank you. Again, the compromise that's being done, we have to be sure that we can, if anything is implemented, it has to be monitored somehow, some way. And to make these changes that are being requested by a couple individuals, I think is going to be very convoluted. I believe that it is inappropriate for the lake that has been there all this time and doing what it's doing. And again, what Matt said, what you said is when people come, if they can't get on the lake at that time, what are they supposed to do? It's not a matter of trying to monitor. The police aren't going to be standing there waiting for somebody to come by and say, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that. It's an almost impossibility to control outer sources. People on the lake is one thing, but when you have commuters coming in or people visiting or going onto the beach or whatever, that's nearly impossible. That's factual. The other part is with what you presented, I think is great in the sense of the education. We've been doing this for months and months. We've reviewed all this stuff over. We're beating a dead horse at this point, as far as I'm concerned. We all have things to do. We want safety. One of the comments made about being able to go at 150 feet, is it safe? Is that the smart thing to do? Why not be proactive and be a little bit more safe and use some common sense that people aren't using at this moment, and to be able to move forward and have something. When we were kids, we used to wear bathing caps that were fluorescent when we went to the ocean. So the people could say, I'm dating myself with that one, but that we used to wear the caps with the big flowers on them. And my parents required us to do that if we were going to go in the ocean. So that way the lifeguards could get a better view of you. So, and that's only going in the ocean 3 feet or 4 feet, maybe, because you could, at that point for safety. So we have to all participate in using common sense to be safe. Education to me is still critical. I'm in the educational field. I believe in that. We've been doing that for years, and I still think that that would work. We haven't done it here. And I think taking this step forward is going to be a huge impact. Let's try it for the year, see how things go, and then we can reevaluate maybe next year if there's something that goes awry. Because the police have been very supportive. Everyone's been supportive, but let's face it, they're not going to be sitting there 24/7 watching everybody. We have to be adults. If you're going to be boating and you're going to be swimming, you better have a parent with you or some kind of responsibility for somebody to watch you. You just don't let your 10-year-old kid go out there swimming by themselves. Parents use some common sense, hopefully, and watch their kids swimming. So it's the same with an adult. If the adult's not going to have somebody with them, have some security with some kind of flotation device or something, because anything could happen. That's why common sense. And I just think that we're pushing the issue with trying to restrict times. It's just not feasible. It's not practical, and it's just really ridiculous. Sorry.
All right. Thank you. How about Mark Rivers? Mark, then the chief.
Right. So on the time sharing thing here, I can't see it because Matt's not sharing screen anymore. But my understanding was you proposed that we still could only go headway speed until 8 o'clock, which would be a restriction from what we currently have. Is that correct? Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yeah, headway speed all the way up to 8 o'clock. So before 8 o'clock, I mean, you could have water skiers out there as soon as the sun rises today. That's how it's set up. That's what our bylaws say. My thought was let's reel that in a little bit to, hear what I heard at, the public meetings. I heard, some folks want to be able to swim till 8 o'clock without a boat out there. That's how I was trying to come up with a compromise that made sense, that I think a lot of people would like, but I guess if they want, you can, I mean, I've seen fishing boats out there at, 7 in the morning, racing across the lake at full speed. I mean, that happens on a regular basis. I mean, I've seen that. So
Yeah,
that was the idea behind that, is that it kept the waters calm up until that time.
Okay.
Chief?
Thanks for pointing that out, Mark.
Okay, I'm going to come on camera because there's a couple of things that I just want to have the committee look at. And I'd like to, I know we're talking about time right now, but I want to go back to the 7,550 foot. So this is my interpretation of that, of the law. And I believe that I am correct in this. I've been plugging it in and also asking the APOs. So So bylaws cannot be more restrictive than state laws. So what we're looking at, to Judy's point, is that the closing the line for swimmers at that 75 then creates a greater restriction imposed on them. So, you know, I know we're kind of stuck on the time thing here, but to me, that just seems like potentially an easier thing to start with so that the swimmers might feel a little bit more safe. And I, you know, I know this is not, I'm not on this meeting, but I want to just, I know that sometimes I talk to you all about what happens on the road, and there's been a couple people that say the water's not the road, but there are some similarities. In April 1st of 2023, the Massachusetts put a new law in act for vulnerable users on the road, particularly cyclists. So they recognized that cyclists out on the road were vulnerable users, and were also in it being made to be more restricted in what they do. And they had to be very careful keeping themselves safe on the road. So the law enacted basically gave them a larger girth, so that if somebody wants to pass them, they now must have 4 feet. They must be able to not have any oncoming traffic. And it's incumbent upon the motorist to be paying attention to the cyclist. You know, this is very similar with, you know, pedestrians and things. They're all labeled as vulnerable users. So I would say that on the water, the people that are outside of the motorboats, the swimmers, etc., are more of a vulnerable user. I would like to ask the committee. I know that people want that time frame, but can we first maybe focus on something that feels a lot easier here? And that is to give the swimmers some more, the ability to have more distance by law, that 150 foot. I was looking at the map, and I was looking at, you know, what that would do for motorists. I don't think that it is going to affect the motorists in the way that we're feeling that it might. And then we can, if we have that, we can definitely have more buoys out there and things that we talked about in the future. And I think for me, that feels like a really good compromise right now.
Done.
Right.
Done.
And you know, I'm welcome to hear people disagree with me. But I just feel that the law does reflect that, and we want to
Fair
make
enough.
sure that they have it.
Yep.
Done.
Thank you.
I'm not going to argue with that. And if it's the law, it's the law. And thank you for clarifying,
Yeah,
Chief.
it's
Judy,
the law.
I'm just thinking about how to keep people even safer, but I agree
No,
that
I
if we
I
could get,
totally understand where you're
I would
coming
still
from,
say
Matt.
bring a boat out if you're out there. I mean, just put a buoy on you, do anything you can to
Right.
just, you know,
Yeah.
make sure
No.
you're
And
identified.
I'm hopeful that people still will do that, and that can be like in our education under like suggestions and things, you know, and even the Shutesbury Friends of the Shutesbury Police Department, the nonprofit. We're going to be doing fundraisers. Maybe we can even fundraise to get some of that equipment so that people will have that. We do that for cyclists as well. Maybe there's even some grants out there that I can look
Cool.
into. But I'll shut up now.
No, I think I think you're fine. Again, I think that,
So
I,
it's the
thanks
law.
for the
That's what we're
clarification.
hearing, right?
What's that?
It's the law. Is that we were confirming?
Yep, I think that's what the chief said. She said she's done some
So
recon,
it's a
so
mute point.
not that Judy,
Yeah.
again, I didn't, I guess I thought we could make it a little safer that way from our own perspective, like, but if I'm out of line, I'm the first to admit I was out of line on that one, so then that's fine. I'm good. Dave, you haven't spoke, go ahead.
Just to get a procedural point for the sake of moving things along, as far as Ria's idea about creating times, she can always make a motion and present it to the committee. We can just decide we want to carry forward with it or not, but we tend to beat a dead horse here. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Fair enough.
We're going to
Thank
make
you.
changes already. So if we want to make other changes, make motions, see if we want to carry on as a committee. and we can do that. Or we'll be talking about it forever.
Yeah. Kathy, go ahead. You haven't spoke.
I move that we agree to adopt these changes to the bylaws. I think it was great getting that clarification from the chief. And while I'm interested to hear more from Rhea about time sharing, I think we need to maybe table that to see how our education and new signage and new buoys and all of those efforts hit this season and take into account whatever data we can collect during this season, and then revisit time sharing if we feel like there's still more work to be done.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I mean, it sits unless anybody wants to second that. So
I would like to second the motion.
The issue is that we have a thing in those bylaws that the chief said we can't do.
I changed it already.
You did? Okay, thank you.
It's on
All
the
right,
screen.
that's all right.
150
Super.
feet.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. So seconded by Christine. And just so we have for the motion is right now for us to accept these amended bylaws to go forward to be presented to the select board. That's how
You've instituted time sharing in here already, as
There's a piece of it.
Mark pointed out. So I'm asking you to take a step further, but so we're kind of doing a replay of what we did in December where it came up. We're just pushing it through without a discussion. And
Yeah.
So we'll go into discussion
that concerns
now.
me about this committee.
Yeah.
Procedurally, we're going to discussion now. And you can make a motion to amend one of these if you like to, and that can be voted on, and then ultimately we'll vote on if we want to move this forward. And we don't have to rush this either. It's already 7:28. I don't want to have to do a rushed vote by any means. I think maybe, if we're gonna have discussion, why don't we have that as our topic, and then we can plan to vote next time. I don't want to get into this last minute rushing thing like we did last
You
time. So
can
that's-
table the motion, Matt, if you want. That's your discretion, though.
I would like to move forward with the motion because I think that these are things we can do in the near term that move us further than we were before forward. It helps us get off of the sticking point of where are we, and we can get into education and try to get things done this year, and get that to the select board. So I think we've corrected some things that were wrong. I think we made things more clear. We did implement, some time restriction, which I think is it all the way to what you would like to see, Rhea? Likely, obviously not. And that's okay. But that's kind of where I see it. Go ahead, Kathy.
I would just like to ask for our next meeting, because I'm curious about how time sharing would work or what times. I guess I'm not a fan because what I envisioned doesn't seem like it would work, but I'm open-minded enough to want to hear a little bit more about that, not maybe for this upcoming season, but for a future season. So maybe Rhea, if you have seen plans or time sharing schedules that have worked in lakes like ours, I guess I would like to just hear more about that next time.
Yeah. I would too.
Thanks,
Rhea,
Kathy.
go ahead. Go ahead, Rhea.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little bamboozled here. This was presented, not sent to us ahead of time. And
But by open meeting law, I can't.
Okay, well, in that case, it would have been nice if you're like tabling this so that we actually have a little time to look at it. And that's at your discretion, as David has stated as a chair. So you're kind of pushing it through, which
pushing it through.
once
We can have a
again,
whole discussion on it.
once again, we are, talking about safety, and I'm looking at something right now, little tiny writing, and not even having time to actually look at it. I think it all lies in the fact that we have this like precious little resource that is only so big, and we have to address that, whether you push it through or not. So you're kind of squeezing it in without really taking the time to like do due process. And that concerns me about this committee. That there's this rush for to make a law without really having due process.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see it tabled so we could have further discussion. Because you're instituting, you say you're against time, designated times, but then you went and put it right on the information. I don't really understand that. It's a little cuckoo to me.
Okay. You can call me cuckoo, I guess. That's fair.
Well, the plan is you're definitely not cuckoo. I've met you in person now.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, and so well, one, I think Matt throwing it in there is what we call compromise, which is nice to see for the time sharing. I do think it would be great, Rhea, if we could get a more, I guess, a concrete plan versus just a subjective idea that's thrown out there. But yeah, so point of clarification here: if Matt were to table the vote, does that mean that the motion just goes away, or are we delaying the vote until we have further time to evaluate this? Is that an option?
Table means delaying the vote. It doesn't mean it goes away. Just
Okay,
delays it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
we're
so I think-
delaying it. We're delaying it
Yeah.
by default because our meeting is ending and already ended. So, in my opinion, we're gonna have more discussion. I will be sending this out to everybody now that it's been an open meeting. I can send it to you all, and I will send that in advance of waiting for minutes too. By the way, if that's okay, so you have time to take a look at it, and then we'll have discussion next meeting. And
So
talk
am I
about it.
hearing that you want a motion to adjourn, Matt?
I mean, if you guys are done, I don't want to keep people. If we start talking now, we'll be here till 9 o'clock. So,
If-
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I can.
okay. All right. Let me look at agree to adjourn. Brazel,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Lehan,
Aye.
Remmel,
Hi.
Rivers,
Bye.
Salvador,
Aye.
Rhea, what do you call her?
Hi.
I
We'll
don't know why I
pick
do
it
that
up
every
next
time.
meeting, guys.
Bro guy. So yeah, we'll pick it up next meeting. Again, I'll send this out and we can have more conversation and talk more about it. Again, I'm not doing this in a method of trying to rush things. I'm trying to do things in a method that the select board's looking for some direction on where our committee stands. I owe them some comments on things, and I plan to share with them what I share with everybody here. Because it's all open in the open anyway. And saying
Thank
we're
you,
gonna have
Matt.
a discussion next meeting. So
Matt,
thanks, everybody.
Before you end, can I just ask a quick question? Since I'll be doing the minutes, who is Charles that's attending?
You might give us
It's
your last
Charles
name,
Gillum.
Charles Gillis,
Okay.
okay.
Hi,
thank you.
Charles.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Charles.
Thanks, gang. We'll see you next meeting. Thank you,
Thank
Matt.
you.
A lot
Be
of work.
safe,
Appreciate it.
everybody.
Bye.